You're listening to Three Ps in the West, Vision West ND's podcast on people, partnerships, and progress. I'm April, a representative of Vision West ND, an organization dedicated to strengthening communities, fostering economic sustainability, and building a prosperous quality of life across Western North Dakota. This is a space where listeners can hear directly from the people shaping our region, learn about the partnerships powering local projects, and see the progress that follows. On today's episode, we are joined by Brady, a commercial line advisor at Bravera Insurance with more than 15 years of experience in the financial industry. Brady understands business owners because he owns and operates a promotional business for over a decade. Originally from Montana, he earned his business administrative degree from the Dickinson State University and brings a genuine, client-first approach to his work, believing every conversation should be authentic and built on respect and honesty. Through both his professional work and community service, Brady demonstrates a true commitment to strengthening the region he calls home. Welcome, Brady. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
So, Brady, you have 15 years experience in the financial industry and you also own your own business. What drew you into the insurance field?
Yeah, so one of the things that got me interested in insurance was a conversation I had a few years ago. It was probably the fall of 2020, and I was in the bank at that time. And one of the things that I really enjoyed doing with my wife and I's promotional business is really just kind of the art, if you will, of managing something that's your very own, right? We have a lot of pride in that. We took, just a lot of responsibility in serving our clients with that. And you really have a sense of ownership and pride with doing that. And really towards the end of my time in the bank, I was probably missing that to a degree, where really feeling like I was having ownership of what I was doing. So when the conversation came of actually insurance, I think I should add this real quick. Like, my wife and I had a conversation about that, and she had asked me about the possibility of joining insurance. I said, no, I'm not joining those guys. And so I was of the, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. But this conversation I had really kind of opened my eyes to it. And really there was like a core piece to it that I essentially had the opportunity to manage my own business within American at the time.
Okay.
And that really kind of got me excited, because the opportunity to, if you will, run a business like Mariah and I were doing with our promotional business, and I could do it in the framework of American, that part of having some ownership in it really kind of excited me. So that was, if you will, the same highs and lows of running a business that we did with our promotional
Mhm.
business. The aspect of having that in insurance is what drew me into insurance.
Okay. And how has being a business owner shaped the way your service other business owners?
Yeah, well, with being a business owner, right? And I've always said that, give credit to those that are truly doing this day in and day out. My wife and I were blessed that we could do this, as you, if you will, in addition to our full-time jobs. And
Okay.
so, where some people, again, their business is everything to them. We take pride in it, but yet we still had full-time jobs. But I will say that still having that experience as being a business owner is like, you really wear everything, like the
Mhm.
highs and lows, like when it comes to reaching out to clients, having conversations with them, understanding what they're looking for, all the way down to the back end of managing invoices and sending out for billing. And hey, what if you have to call the person because they haven't paid their bill? Like, I think that experience has always helped me, even in my time in the bank, truly
Mhm.
understand a little bit more all the things that business owners are wrestling with. I think one of the things that people lose sight of when dealing with business owners is that insurance is the only thing they have to worry about. Or,
Mhm.
like, why won't they call me back? Well, they are wrestling with a number of issues: employees, the actual work themselves. There's so many things that business owners wear. And I think just having a little bit of experience in that helped me to understand just all the things that they go through. And that even though what's important to me is not necessarily the only thing on their plate.
That's good insight right there. When a business starts up in Western North Dakota, What are the first insurance questions or challenges they usually face?
Well, because insurance is such a fun topic to talk about. Everybody just loves, like, they just can't wait to talk about it. But in reality, I think it's really I don't understand insurance, but I know I need this. Like, what do I even need to start? I think that kind of frames any business owner's thoughts towards insurance is like,
Hmm.
what actually is necessary? What do I actually need to protect my business and to get up and get going? I think the second part of that is, okay, well, I have a general idea of what I need for insurance. Where do I go for that? Right?
Hmm.
Like we see everything online. We see billboards, advertisements. Like, how do I know where I should actually start?
Hmm.
And I think those are the two toughest things, right? Is an idea of what actually the business owner needs for insurance, and then where do I even go to find that?
At what stage when you're starting a business should you start thinking about insurance? Like before you start the business, after you start the business? Like at what
Yeah,
stage when you're deciding you want to start a business should you think about insurance?
it's a great question. And probably there's an element that it does depend on the business that you're in.
Okay.
And even as far as if it's going to be a side thing like my wife and I compared to like a full blown, we're going from the ground up. But I think really, though, that all leads back to it should be done at the start, right? Because what I hear a lot from business owners is that insurance is actually a significant expense. And
Hmm.
being that it's such a significant portion of where their money is going, that has to be accounted for as part of where they're going, right? So
Hmm.
as a business owner, you need to be aware of where you're going to be able to collect and generate revenue, but you also need to be aware of your expenses, what you have going out. And I think to get into it without a proper idea or understanding of what this takes, there's a misunderstanding that, if you will. We've even seen it where people have walked in our door with the idea of, hey, I want to do this, and then found out what the cost it's going to take to satisfy some contractual requirements.
Hmm.
And I think that's affected then not only their desire to continue, but also their ability to do so. So it has to be at the forefront, if you will.
So it
With
needs to be part of like the budget. When you're budgeting a business, you should be budgeting in insurance right from the get-go so you know kind of what to expect.
I believe so. And the tough part with that is then, well, I talked to this person and they said they can't give me a actual quote or a proposal without and there's an element to that there's a lot of pieces that come into play. But I think hopefully with having the right conversation with the right person is that advisor, if you will, can at least give you an idea of what it will be needed as far as insurance and what potentially that could cost. I think that has to be a starting point for that business owner again, because if again the expenses are not matching what you're projecting, we're going to be stepping into a world of hurt before we ever get started.
That makes sense. So insurance can feel overwhelming and intimidating. How do you approach those conversations to make sure business owners feel understood and supported?
Yeah, well, I guess that does contradict my comment that everybody thinks insurance is fun. But I think one of the things I strive to do is breaking down the entire process of insurance, right? So it's not one of the most fun things that people want to talk about, but it is a necessary part of the conversation for business owners. And I think that breaking it down and, if you will, stripping the pieces away
Hmm.
and really getting to the ground level of it and saying, okay, the reason you're here is because you do want to protect your business. Now, here's how that will look like. So I think it's important to get actually into the process of it to explain what we'll be trying to do for them
Hmm.
and why this is part of the process. I think when you take that perspective, it helps owners to understand the different layers to it. Look, when I wasn't in insurance, I had said a number of things about how it works and my thoughts of it. And I think the perception is true that we can just walk into uh, an agency like Bravera, or we can go online and just get insurance like that.
Hmm.
I guess I was wrong. I've come, I've come to find out that it doesn't happen like that, right? So, really, I think an important part of this is breaking it down and explain the process that it takes to get the proper insurance in place and why some of the information that will be requested is necessary so that these business owners understand I'm not just being asked to provide this information for whatever reason, but they can get a little bit more understanding of why this is important and help to better understand how these coverages that they're looking for actually protect their business.
Mm-hmm.
Which, and again, right, because it's an important piece to what they do. They're obviously intent on building something successful and desirable. Part of that has to be, how do you protect it?
Correct. So you say that there's certain things that they have to present to you. Can you give examples of those things that a business owner needs for the insurance? Like what exactly do they need to bring into you to start that insurance process?
Yeah, so like for example, like with I would say some of the basics, such as like identifying information, such as their tax ID number, if they've been registered with the Secretary of State, how they're set up, such as an LLC or corporation. Uh, we try to get a narrative of what they're actually going to be doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's an important part of the underwriting process. Here in Southwest North Dakota, the oil field is such a big part of
Mm-hmm.
uh, our communities, if you will. And so, a lot of times, what we see in this area is that when somebody wants to go and do work out in the oil field, in order to do that contractually, there's certain requirements that are put to them, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Typically, it's found in a master service agreement, an MSA, and so that's an important part of the conversation for anybody that's doing work out in the oil field. Is you don't just get to, if you will, like Mariah and I with our promotional business, just get a tax ID number, register with the state, and off you go.
Yeah.
Walking in and ask April if she needs some pens. So with that being said, what kind of contracts are you signing? What's been put to you as far as what insurance is being requested? That's an important part to this. And again, it's specific to the oil field, but that is again the fact that those elements are being put to our insureds and business owners. It's important to actually see that, because as we go even on the backside of things to these different companies, speaking to different underwriters, in order to get these coverages, it's going to be part of that documentation, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
to show the need for it. And then additionally, financials. Now, again, if it's a new business, obviously don't have year-end financials, but yet to like something like a business plan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of the biggest things, we take pride in at Bravera, myself, especially, I try to do this, is really understanding what that business does, right? So like when we think about it on the other side of the table, if you have an insurance company that's wanting to insure businesses,
Mm-hmm.
underwriters who are representative of the company that are looking to say, hey, if Bay's Image Builders would be a good insured for us, they're wanting to know what we do, right?
Yep.
And so an important part of what I do at Bravera and speaking with business owners is truly understanding what they do. Because unfortunately, there's an element to insurance that you will price for the unknown. And so I take tremendous responsibility that it's my job to first understand what that business owner is doing so that we can communicate that in a pretty clear way to that underwriter so that they can, if you will, price accordingly. There's this element of the more info I share, the more it will be used against me. And again, I think that's tough because in any industry, we can't speak for everyone. There are
Mm-hmm.
different individuals that go about their business different ways, excuse me. But in reality, though, is the more information that is shared in this, initial conversations, it only helps to be transparent with these companies on the back end so they can truly see what's at play
Mm-hmm.
and allow the insured to, from a pricing or term standpoint, get the most favorable.
So, as far as starting a business, can you tell me what the big difference is from somebody who's doing a promotional business compared to somebody working in the oil field? Like, what is the huge difference in insurance there? Like, I'm sure there's something that's huge difference.
Yeah, and not to repeat myself, but I think I would go back to contractually. Like in the oil field, like if you're going to go work on a site or what have you, there's going to be contractual requirements that are put to that contractor through like an MSA, if you will, that state that unless you have this insurance in place, you can't do work. Whereas with my wife and I, with when we set up Base Image Builders, it was simply we went and opened our account at Bravera, our deposit account. We had got our tax ID number, we registered with the state, then we were pretty much able to walk into Jeff and Lenny at Starboard and say, "Hey guys, here's what we're doing."
Okay.
So again, like to give a simple, I think, clean answer in this, one of the biggest differences is, again, contractually what some of the requirements are put to you. Jeff and Lenny at Starboard at the time did not have any contractual requirements that Mariah and I needed to adhere to in order
Mhm.
to let them know, hey, here's what we're doing. We'd like to be able to, do this service for you. Does that make sense?
Yep, that makes
Okay.
sense. So you serve on the Dickinson Chamber Committee and have been active in nonprofits and your church. How does that community engagement shape the way you connect with clients and advice you give?
Yeah, I like this question. Thank you for that. Because, um, at the heart of it, right? I think it's important to be genuine and real in all areas of your life.
Hmm.
Who I am on Sunday morning at church should be the same person that I am Monday morning at work or Saturday night. And so when I look at this question here and thinking about whether it's serving on a nonprofit like the Dickinson Chamber, or being involved in leading a connect group at our church, it's important to be who you say you are, and not just show it in one aspect of your life, right? So again, it's one of those things that when you show up to the Dickinson area chamber golf scramble and how you conduct yourself, and if you will, serving in as a volunteer,
Hmm.
um, I think it's important to be genuine, and again, the same person across those different venues, if you will. And so I think it just holds me accountable, that I realize again that whether it's serving on a nonprofit like the chamber as a volunteer, or if it's again being active within our church here at Evangel, or at work, that it's important to be consistent because people are watching.
Hmm.
And again, none of us are perfect, but I think who you put yourself to be, and especially like if you will for insurance, right?
Hmm.
Again, such a fun industry, but like the reality I think is though, if you put yourself out there to be a person that people can trust, to be an advisor, you can't go and be somebody completely different on the back end of things or
Hmm.
personally, right? I think um, I'm always looking at whether again it's at the chamber or it's at church, that who I am um, is important, that I be consistent in that, right? Yes, I take a tremendous responsibility in reflecting my employer to be
Hmm.
respectful of that. But more importantly to me is that I would hope that who I am at Bravera or with the guys after City League basketball on a Wednesday night or again at church Sunday morning, that I'm consistent in that. That's important, I think, to be genuine. And I think when you do that, when there is consistency, okay, then back to the element of, can I trust what this person is telling me? I think the more consistent you are across the board, that helps to support that.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Can you share an example where the right insurance coverage made a big difference for a business owner in our region?
Yeah, there's a lot to this, right? Because there's examples of finding the right coverage, and hey, then something didn't happen and they were covered, right? Um, I think one of the things that stands out to me when I looked at this question was, um, and again, so much of what we see here is oil field related,
Hmm.
that sometimes just having the conversation to make people aware of what this actually means um, is pretty eye opening, right? And so I think there's an element to the conversation that, again, now I've referenced the fact that when people walk in or whatever, hey, I've been presented with this contract. This is what I'm being told I need
Hmm.
to do. But to take in an extra step to say, okay, do you understand why this is being asked of you? And then there have been cases where, for example, what I put to you, April, in order to come work for me,
Hmm.
that there is a conversation there between you and your advisor for insurance, to come back to the person you're going to work for and say, hey, here's actually what I have. Are you willing to accept this? Right?
Hmm.
Like make an exception to the rule. And sometimes, so again, as there are examples to find the right coverage for a business that maybe they had assumed was being taken care of, that actually wasn't, unfortunately, as part of their program. There are also instances too that actually, hey, this is what I thought I had to do, but I was able to come to an understanding of why I needed that and actually go back and then advocate for, hey, this is what I have. Will this suffice? And they were actually released from that requirement. And I think that's an important part of this too, right? And
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times, like our desire is to make sure that what the business owner is expecting and wanting to protect against, that we have the coverage in place for that, but also that, if you will, that they don't insure for things that they never were intending to insure, or again, as I referenced previously, things they're not actually doing. I think that's an important part to, again, not to get carried away with trying to insure everything,
Mm-hmm.
but making sure that it actually meets what they are truly trying to protect. That's a really individual part of insurance, if you will, is that we could have walked through the door here two businesses that do the exact same type of work, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
competing businesses in a similar industry. How they view what they want to protect are entirely different. So, for example, again, you could have a business owner walk in and say, we don't feel that we want to pay the money to repair one of our vehicles if it gets damaged.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't see that money that we're paying for that as part of our solution. You could have the other business just as successful as that prior business say, no, we actually believe that, hey, we're going to, again, we take pride in the vehicles we have. We're actually going to look to have insurance help us with repairing a vehicle if it gets damaged. So again, one's not necessarily wrong compared to the other.
Yeah.
It's just making sure that actually the program matches what they're looking for.
Okay, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. As you look ahead, what changes or challenges do you think business owners should prepare for in the insurance industry over the next 5 years?
Yeah, well, it's a tough question, if you will, when you've only been in it for a couple of years, right? So I can only speak to a few years here. But one of the things that's been happening within the last couple of years is insurance companies are asking for more from insureds, which is
Okay.
unfortunate. But what I mean by that is simply like if we go strictly to a home and auto situation for individuals, where it used to be just one deductible, going back 5, 10 years ago, what's coming back into play is a second deductible specific, let's say, to a wind or hail. And so what that means is basically the companies are recognizing, hey, where the majority of losses stem from. And so then in response to that, they go back to insureds like you and I and basically look to account for that by increasing what our deductibles are.
Mm-hmm.
So if previously I could carry on my home policy, let's say a $500 deductible, what's happened, and unfortunately I see continuing to happen, is changing what I'm going to be out of pocket. So it used to be okay with $500. Now insurance companies we've seen at minimum are asking $2,500. And I
Okay.
think that's something that's just unfortunately going to continue. You know, one of the questions I get a lot is, hey, Brady, I have a clean driving record. I haven't done anything wrong. Why do I have to pay for the sins of California or what happened in South Carolina? It's a fair question.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, even let's say like for myself, if I have a clean driving record, um, there's just not enough dollars from Brady Boese personally that would ever get an insurance company to insure just myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is basically using, you know, mass numbers, if you will, to account for that risk from the insurance company's perspective. So part of that then is, yeah, we do to a certain extent pay for the sins of what happens in other regions. And it has a thing that affects what's called reinsurance, which is essentially insurance for insurance companies in the same way that you and I pay
Mm-hmm.
insurance to these insurance companies. But with all that's been happening, again, when we look at like some of these crazy fires or again, tornadoes, hurricanes, that all has a part to play in this. And really what's happened the last couple of years, and unfortunately I see continuing, is that the insurance company's response to these devastating losses is to ask more back from insureds. So then naturally there's a conversation there of understanding if no longer a $500 deductible is maybe at play as far as my home policy,
Mm-hmm.
what do I need to do then as Brady Bays to make sure that if I do have a loss on my home, God forbid something happens, what am I doing on a month to month basis to make sure that I can account for, let's say, a $2,500 deductible. And that's where I think personal finance, if you will, is such an important part of insurance, because if I understand again that, hey, at the time of loss, if I can't pay that first $2,500, I can never start the benefit of insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important to, again, be transparent, let people know this is where, unfortunately, things have been trending and probably will continue to go. But then how can we bring that back and now plan differently, right? So it's one thing, it may be frustrating and discouraging, but if I know that instead of $500 out at time of loss, it potentially could be $2,500, what do I do in the other 11 months to account for that $2,000 difference, right? So then it kind of gets back to how well do, let's say, my wife and I budget, because these things do matter.
Mm-hmm. So my question for you is let's say I have a $500 deductible. Is like with you saying it's going up to 2,500, can you still get that $500 deductible if you pay more for your homeowner's insurance? Or are you having to like to keep that same policy at the same price, you're having to move up to that $2,500 deductible?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a little bit of both, right?
Okay.
The majority of what we're seeing in the marketplace is the trend of the removal of that deductible, if you will, right? Or let's say the addition of a separate wind and hail deductible.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I can't speak for all companies. One thing, like a quick distinction here for the pod, is that at Bravera we are an agency that represents multiple companies.
Mm-hmm.
We have, again, we represent these insurance companies that want to insure individuals like yourself, April, and business owners. But there are also insurance companies that do not participate as part of the independent setup like myself.
Okay.
And so again, I can't speak for every insurance company and their underwriting and what they do, but I would say there's a trend that is moving to the new standard, or the new minimum is, if you will, a $1,500 or $2,000 deductible. There could still be, again, companies that will offer it, but no doubt about it, if they are willing to still offer that low deductible, unfortunately, the insureds are probably going to see that reflected in their premium.
That makes sense. What is one simple step business owners can take this month to strengthen their insurance coverage and protect their livelihood?
Yeah, I think one of the things business owners could do is simply to get a copy of their policy. So it may be actually under a stack of papers under their desk, to be honest with you. But I think one of the ways that people could, have a first step here is to get a copy of actually what they have. So every policy, whether it's again for a home policy or a business policy, that policy is essentially a contract between the individual and then the insurance company.
Mhm.
And I think for a starting point, for people to get a copy of that, whether it's a digital copy or whether you have a binder or a paper copy, get a copy of that. And then I would encourage that individual to seek out a trusted advisor, if you will. We got a team of them at Bravera. But really, again, let's start with getting a copy of what you currently have, and then have a conversation with a trusted advisor that can actually speak to what you have to
Mhm.
bring clarity. And that's important to me, because again, before somebody, let's say, uh, looks elsewhere or goes online or something, let's start with what you currently have. And so there's so much information out there, some of it good, some of it not so good.
Mhm.
But I think, again, because as we referenced earlier, insurance is so unique, a good first step for people today, whether it be a business owner or an individual, get a copy of what you first have. And then I think from there, it would be prudent to seek out a trusted advisor that you can have a conversation about actually what you have first in place.
Next question for you, Brady, is how often should people go through their insurance like policy to figure out what they need and what they don't need? Like, let's say I started a business and I got like the basic
Mhm.
insurance policy. Now it's been 5 years down the road. Is what I'm going to want for insurance? Could that change?
Well, it certainly could change. And I would say that that conversation should be an ongoing thing, right?
Okay.
So as a business, when we think about, as they try to grow and basically thrive out there, well, there's a number of things that they could do, right? So like, and we see this all the time. It's like a business starts out to do this type of work, but then they get an opportunity presented to them that's like, well, we can't pass that up. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's a tremendous opportunity for us. The thing about it is that it's important to have a conversation with your agent advisor to make sure that what you currently have in place is adequately set up to protect that new part of it, right? So yeah, again, like, is there a perfect answer? Probably not, because it does depend on the individual and the business. But I would argue, I think the more that one keeps communication open between them and their agent, it's going to give a better chance to make sure they stay ahead of it as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to reactive. Um, does that help?
Yes. Yes. All right, Brady, can you finish this line for me? Western North Dakota thrives when?
Businesses thrive. Simple as that.
I
Look,
like
like
that.
in go back when I started at American in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember the first time I was asked to be a part of the chamber, and I was chamber. Like, what would we even be doing? But I was given an opportunity as an employee of Bravera to participate on the ambassador committee within the chamber, and that has been, excuse me, so much fun because I met great people that were volunteering as well.
Mm-hmm.
I met a number of businesses that actually, there's an example, a guy from Minnesota, and we still do business with him today. He's actually, happy to say, a friend of Mariah and I's. And those type of connections wouldn't have happened if I didn't get involved. But when you have businesses that are thriving
Mm-hmm.
and are able to give back their employees to volunteer on these nonprofits and get involved, our communities thrive too, right? So you and I have both seen this, right, with events that happen in our community. I think of
Mm-hmm.
the Tuesday nights at the band shell. Now that my wife and I have kids, again, when businesses are thriving in our community, they provide, whether it's the employees or money back to these organizations that can put on these events for our community. I just think that's such an important part to it.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming in today. And then anybody who has an insurance question or business insurance, please go to Bravera Bank, the Bravera Bank's website, or give Brady a call and he'll help you out.
Yeah, look, we love having conversations with people. We're here to serve our community, and I would just say again, whether whatever you're looking for. So I'm specific to what we call PNC, property and casualty, but whether it be medical insurance or life insurance, um, give us a look. Again, Bravera has a team of professionals that are equipped to have those conversations. And we really, again, at the heart of what we do at Bravera, want to serve our community. We want to help businesses and individuals. Um, this is where we live, right? And we want to see our community thrive. We
Mm-hmm.
want to see businesses thrive because as we're a part of this community too, we all want to thrive in it together. So, yeah, if people, are encouraged by this, please give us a call. We'd love to have a conversation with you.
That is awesome. Thanks you again, Brady, for coming in.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.